this issue. Mr. Moss.
Brian Moss, 16 Ruthin Circle, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. Definitely want to say thank you to the high school students and parents bringing this forward. Great job presenting. I did a little bit of research, and when I looked at like the health issues related to styrofoam, it was in 2011 when styrene was added as a substance that is reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen, and that's with that addition, that report in 2011 only had 240 chemicals on it. So, you know, for me as a parent, I have 2 kids in the school system. I have 2 kids that I'm bringing out to eat in Shrewsbury. I like to dine locally. You know, I think that's 7 years since we've known that. So, you know, I think it's time that the styrofoam ban go into effect so that we consider the health impacts to our kids. I also looked at New York City as like an example, like if New York City can do it, and I was kind of trying to find their reasons. And when I looked in, you know, the press release from New York City's ban, when they passed the law, they had a kind of clause in there that required the sanitation commissioner to determine whether EPS or expanded polystyrene single-service articles can be recycled at designated recycling processing facilities at their recycling place in a manner that is environmentally effective, economically feasible, and safe for employees. And under the law, if it is not found to be recyclable, then it has to be banned if it can't be recycled. So that seemed to be, you know, and after they did all that research and they have a whole report on it, they determined that it cannot be recycled in an economical or environmentally friendly way or friendly to or safe for the workers. So that seemed to be the main driver for the ban in New York City. I think that applies here in Shrewsbury too, producing a lot of waste. It's going to the incinerator, we're taking the ash. So wherever those toxic chemicals are going, we're either breathing it or it's going on, you know, on the farms and we're eating it, or it's going in the ash landfill in our town. As far as businesses, it's a great job that they looked at these businesses. And in New York City, actually, the New York State Restaurant Association was in support. And, you know, actually we're saying that, you know, that it moved their industry towards sustainability while recognizing the needs of small businesses via a long transition period. So I think that, you know, they have a year and a half before they have to enact this, and then they have a year deferment, and then another year deferment if they need to. So really, it would be 2022 if there was really somebody that had a financial hardship. So it seems like a long time. We're already knowing that we have 7 years now. Adding another 3.5, that would be almost a decade of knowing that it's a human carcinogen, yet we're still feeding our kids, putting the food on it, and serving our kids with it. It's not the styrofoam peanuts. It's not the styrofoam used in building materials. This is focused on the styrofoam that the food touches that our kids are eating. And then schools also, their Department of Education was excited to be part of it. So I think when the ban happened, one of their school's chancellors said that they were excited to be part of the city's new environmentally conscious polystyrene policy. And they were replacing polystyrene trays with compostable plates to meet the ban. And I was looking at some of the materials they had, and I thought this was really interesting, they used like the Empire State Building. So they had a picture of the Empire State Building, and they said that New York City Public Schools discarded 850,000 styrofoam lunch trays every day. And at 80 trays per foot, the daily stack was 2 miles high every day that they were throwing away into that waste stream. So that was 8.5 times the height of the Empire State Building. So that little one's the Empire State Building, and they were throwing away every day, way higher than that stacked. So, you know, to me, you know, you were mentioning the trays that Shrewsbury's using. It just seems that that it, you know, this whole process of taking non-renewable resources, making a tray out of it, using it for a couple of minutes, putting it into the waste stream, incinerating it, and all the health and environmental costs that come with that just doesn't seem to make sense for a couple of minutes of use. So that definitely support the article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Anything else on Article 14?
I guess the one question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah. The one question I have is in terms of we keep talking about recycling, but it's my understanding, at least from Shrewsbury's standpoint, soiled containers, paper or cardboard, like pizza boxes, cannot be recycled right now. So none of these trays would be able to be recycled, I guess is the question. Or would they be recycled in some other manner other than going through our trash collection?
Sure. So there's always like things like plastic trays that other schools use that are like the reusable types, or we could use, for example, compostable
paper.
trays.
Currently don't have like a working composter in Shrewsbury, but like that wouldn't be like too difficult to implement if we decided to change on a big scale for schools, because then we could just compost it and then it would be used, like instead of burning it and releasing these chemicals, we'd just be putting it, breaking it down naturally.
And the grant that Rahul talked about,
They would be a one-time grant and helping if they
Start up
support
when it
if they
comes to
support us.
composting specifically.
yes.
And other towns have received. I don't know
So
if it's
Framingham
common,
had a receipt of $39,000.
and then one that was for having like dishwashers and like reusable plates, and there was another one that had to do with composting specifically, and it received about 10,000 from what I remember. So there is a sizable amount of money we could get towards starting up like a switch towards composting methods.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Sorry, hi. I'm John Chenier. I live over on 96 Walnut. This is the first time that I've ever been involved here publicly. My son is entering kindergarten this coming year, and so this issue of Styrofoam came up when I found out that they were using Styrofoam products in his school that he'll be eating off of. I was appalled that a town like Shrewsbury would even consider that, or that hasn't joined the 21st century and joining these 27 other communities. We talk about Amherst and Cambridge being sort of places where everything is banned. I find it no coincidence that a place like Cambridge, where two of the world's best universities and institutions of higher learning has instituted a ban like this, and was a leader in this process. I feel like if a town like Pittsfield, which I visit every year as part of my job, can do something like this, this is something that we should be doing and that shouldn't even be a question. I want to applaud all four of these gentlemen. I meet high school students, hundreds of them every year, as part of my job at Framingham State. Framingham State has taken a really progressive approach to the way that they do this. We are actually a trayless facility when it comes to our dining services. So it encourages students, one, to eat less, and to avoid the freshman 15. But it also means that we have significantly reduced the amount of waste that we produce on a daily, weekly, and annual basis. One thing I also want to point out is that I've worked in a variety of small businesses, such as restaurants and pizza shops and things like that. One benefit that I saw as an employee and supervisor in one of these environments is that Styrofoam actually takes up a ton of space. So when we think about our small businesses in this area, we think about the amount of space that they have to take up to store Styrofoam cups, store Styrofoam containers, amount of space that is taken up in our schools to store these things in closets, and the shipping costs that come with that. But it also means that downstream, this all ends up taking up space in our landfill. And it's not, to the gentleman's point about soiled cardboard, I can burn soiled cardboard to start a fire in my fireplace. I can't burn Styrofoam because I'm concerned that it's, for every reason that Mr. Moss went over. So the way that this also relates to Article 9 and Article 13 in today's, I find it coincidental that we're talking about the cost of the amount of waste that we produce and the cost of and space that our trash bags take up. And how do we mitigate some of that? How do we reduce the amount of waste that we produce? Well, one way is to no longer use Styrofoam products, and then we don't have to worry about buying more trash bags. We don't have to worry about the amount of waste that our schools are producing and the cost of removing that waste from the schools, right? We talk about an Empire State Building size thing, right? That's insane that we have to pay somebody else to remove that waste from our schools, right? When we could be using a recyclable or a compostable product instead. The same thing goes with the amount of water usage. Like when we talk about if we're reusing plates that students can reuse every day, and there is a cost that's going into washing those plates, but what we've seen at Framingham State is that cost is drastically outweighs the environmental impact and the cost of health, both to our planet and to our residents and to our children. I just have a hard time looking at my son and thinking that in 15 years I'm going to have to apologize to him because I didn't come here today to speak on his behalf about the materials that are being used to serve him food. So, yeah, thank you so much. I've been here for like 4 years. This is kind of cool to be like in front of this microphone. So, my wife's probably watching on TV. So thank you all. Congrats, gentlemen. I hope you all apply to Framingham State next year.
Thank you. Anything else? Article 14. Yes, sir, in the back.
I'm Lakshmikant, call me Lax, 27 Kingsbrook Avenue. I'm the father of Anirudh Iyer. I'm very proud to be his father. Thank you all for listening to what these 4 kids delivered today. The only thing I want to add is the long-term amount of cost that we will save on the health of all the residents of Shrewsbury outweighs the cost of the minuscule cost that is going to be borne by the businesses.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else? Article 14.